Ohto Sabel from University of Jyväskylä in Finland, and we have been working on the policy recommendations. And a couple of words about what is a policy recommendation. I'm sure most of you are quite familiar with that topic and theme. Policy recommendation is like a problem-solving tool. If you have a problem, you create a policy recommendation how to solve it. For example, in the terms of citizen science, one problem has been that it's quite new, quite unknown. So you create policy recommendations, a set of recommendations for creating awareness of citizen science. You might be considering that it's not funded enough, so you create policy recommendations how to fund operations in citizen science. And quite recently in Germany, for example, a large acceptance or a large project was conducted on creating citizen science part of the largest science community, and you create holistic large set of recommendations for that. So what is the CS track answer for that? What are the questions that the CS track is answer to? CS track is a Horizon 2020 research project on observation and analyzing, especially the participants' role in citizen science. And our perspective will be addressed from 3 different levels and in this webinar. First, general policy recommendations that and how the process is done and what are the solutions we have found. And the second level given by Simon is on the recommendations emerging from data analysis perspective. And when we have policy recommendations on citizen science, the question of accreditation or accreditation is something that needs to be addressed as well. And Jaila will be presenting on that topic. So we go directly to the presentation on the policy recommendations, which will be presented by me and Aaron. Is it showing okay?
Yes, I see it.
Excellent. So in this presentation, the policy recommendation will be addressed from 3 different sections. In the end, you will have possibility of discussing, and if you have any questions, please do share them immediately by including them in the chat, and we discuss them in the end. I will be discussing on the process overview, and then Aaron will address the issues related to actual policy recommendations. Our process in this research project was actually created in the background level. In the uppermost, you see those different steps we have taken in the process of creating the policy recommendations, and 2 aspects that kind of guided our work is that our task was to produce knowledge and policy recommendations. So this is research and observation project looking in the citizen science practitioners. And the second is that we use these results from different various research empirical research to create and formulate the policy recommendations. So in the background, we had first the literature review and so forth. And when the project get funded, we started with research projects, empirical research, different kinds of empirical research that were done across Europe with a larger survey, with the databases on what kind of projects are going in different countries, different kinds of observations on how, for example, corona studies and corona citizen science projects were done, how different platforms that have done. So various kinds of empirical research was conducted. Based on that, we created ontological dimensions that what our project partners have gathered the information, what kind of research orientations they have. And in the second phase, we started to look into what kind of epistemological basis will those understandings on citizen science provide? And in the final, we created large set of possible recommendations, and we had a Delphi decision-making process in order to create the particular kinds. And finally, created these policy recommendations. Here are the 10 ontological dimensions that were captured into 5 different bases. As you can see, there are some connections to what kind of ideas they have. For example, data and analytic tools connected to database, creating value for the systems and individuals were in the value base, and so forth. And next, I turn the floor to Aaron. Aaron, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Ohto. So my name is Aaron, and in this slide, I will be talking about the policy recommendations. And the goal of this slide, or the table on this slide, is to provide a quick capture, a snapshot of the deliverable D4.4. And a link to that will be provided to you later if you have not read it already in advance. So basically what you can see are the different issues, the policy in a few words, and then the levels relating to each policy. So as was highlighted by Ohto earlier, there are these 5 different issues or the basis that we originally used when we were discussing internally about these policy recommendations. And for each issue, there are 2 policy recommendations, and they are numbered accordingly. So 1.1, 1.2, and so on. And then the phrasing here in this table is meant to give you a glimpse of what the policy is. It's obviously expanded in much more detail within the deliverable, but it should still provide you an idea of what the policy is concerned with. And then you have these 3 different levels: micro, meso, and macro. And these levels are not meant to be hierarchical. Rather, they're just meant to highlight the types of individuals or stakeholders that these different policy recommendations may concern. So micro refers to who does what, when, where, how, and if possible, why. So mainly participants and project stakeholders. Meso is referring to the functional framework within citizen science. So if we think about the training that's provided by museums, organizations, and so on. And then the macro is referring to the overarching goals and purposes within citizen science. So thinking of policymakers and policy influencers. And we found that different policies could actually be concerned with different levels. So if you look at, for example, 1.2, models for added value within citizen science, this is connected with all these levels. So micro, meso, and macro. However, 2.2 and then 5.1, these policies we found were more concerned at the macro level. So again, policymakers and policy influencers. So if we look at one of these policies in more detail, for example, 2.1. So it says here on the table, project platforms support learning and co-creation. And the context here for this policy, so you can see it relates to creation, the issue of creation. And based on the empirical research that we did in the project, we found that CS projects can generate new types of learning as well as very robust scientific results. So good research. But this is based on the assumption, or this is made possible when there are different tools that supplement and facilitate the process in this knowledge creation. For example, if we think of the different activities within projects, collecting data, discussing results, and so on. And then, of course, if the project managers, the different stakeholders there are communicating with the participants, and the participants can communicate with each other, this is then an opportunity for this learning and co-creation. And an example of this in action is actually, we consider the platform SciStarter, because this is a platform like Zooniverse, if you've heard of that one, in which project organizers and participants come together to conduct citizen science. But the unique thing about SciStarter is that different learning modules can be placed on the platform, not only by the platform itself, but also by projects. And participants then can complete these learning modules and earn badges. And this is quite significant when we think of these different policies, because these badges can not only be a way to indicate skill sets or experience within citizen science from the participants' perspective, but it can also indicate the relevance of knowledge that they have for a particular project. And at the same time, projects can provide prerequisites for this. And this example of SciStarter is referred to a few times for other policy recommendations, such as 1.2 and 3.2, as you can see in this table. But again, this is just a quick example, and this table here is just a quick snapshot of the policy recommendations.